At the beginning of the whole project, we were asked to research 4 different films, 2 neo-noirs and 2 classic film noirs. We decided that we'd all delegate different films to one another and see which ones we liked and what things we liked about them. The film noirs I watched were Double Indemnity, Murder My Sweet, and the neo-noirs that I watched were Strangers on a Train, Drive, and Pretty Little Liars. We really needed to challenge something in our film, which was about the femme fatale. Although this is something that they already had in the film, we really wanted to challenge the idea about it because we really wanted her to be the most important character. We wanted her to be superior to the male in the film, which normally in classic noirs is not the same. We showed the femme fatale being the most important through high-angle shots. We wanted to develop the idea which we saw in classic film noirs. So we kept the same storyline, like in Murder My Sweet, with the repetitive dream sequence or the mirror sequence in Lady of Shanghai. We found that this gave a lot of enigma. We wanted to make a complex storyline. That's why we definitely needed to use something like a dream sequence that had the classic noir vibe about it, being very complicated and confusing. After creating this film though, we decided that it seemed a bit too confusing and maybe we challenged it a bit too much with the storyline. Therefore we went back and developed another classic noir element, such as doing a voiceover.
It was November the 2nd, in the nightlife of London. I met him for the first time. He never told me the purpose of being there that night. He doesn't talk business with me.
Which really meant the film was a lot less confusing and gave us that challenged and developed combination. This section is about different social groups. We focus mainly on gender. This is because we found we could work with the classic stereotypes and the noir and neo-noir stereotypes of women. Noir stereotypes include the dutiful and the femme fatale. The dutiful is the woman the man should be with but is not. He is with the seductive femme fatale, Natalie. We wanted to involve both stereotypes and anti-stereotypes. We used the idea of women being very elegant and feminine, as the first woman we meet is Lily, the wife-to-be. Although we decided to show our femme fatale, Natalie, to be empowered. We do this with fast-paced editing and the cross-cutting from Tommy Lee to Natalie. It shows she has superior status and Tommy has inferior status, as she has the upper hand due to the gun. Additionally, the voiceover is read by a woman to emphasise the power she has over Tommy's character. Therefore, the only male in the extract seems marginalised. We also looked into the dutiful as well because we wanted to emphasise her helplessness, like in Lady of Shanghai, when Rita Hayworth is singing, laying in her swimwear with the men around her, much like we did with Natalie laying on the sofa as Tommy seems to be intensely looking at her. Therefore, the idea of patriarchal society is slightly visible to show a clear contrast between the two female characters. However, we made sure there was no objectification in the whole extract, as that wasn't the idea we was going for when trying to make the characters inferior. We decided this after watching Double Indemnity when Phyllis walks down the stairs with nothing but a towel on. This meant that she was scopophilically represented, and that was classic to a film noir. It took us a very long time to find the right media institution to distribute our film. We think this mainly was because we didn't really know if it needed to be a widespread film or an unsaturated market. There was a big disagreement between the group about deciding if it was unsaturated market or saturated market. We really need to do some more research into it to find out which market it could actually appeal to. So essentially, a saturated market means it's going to be fully released amongst all of the population, and this normally happens with big conglomerates like Sony or Disney because they have the money to actually publicise their films and are able to have a buzz around their films. That means people will want to go see them because if they've seen other films and they enjoy them, they're more likely to go watch them. Whereas an unsaturated market means you have a smaller audience. It's more of an indie type film where you actually target it towards a smaller audience. So you'll pick a specific topic that most people might not actually understand, but there's a small minority that will, which will be interested in the film. It's very difficult to choose between the two. It could be in a saturated market or unsaturated market because it can interest the whole population, but it could also interest that small niche audience. After a lot of consideration, we did choose the saturated market. We wanted people from all ages and all genders to understand and watch our film and get a real knowledge about film noirs. Finally, we chose Sony to distribute our film. Everybody knows what a Sony film is, and they have done it before with there's many examples of film noirs or neo-noirs being made by Sony, which we think would benefit us, as our film is very strong contrast between neo-noirs and a film noir. Different film genres have different target audiences. A film noir is a hard one to judge, as according to a reoccurring article that I found, Noir in the Present, it says noirs are aimed at an older audience of 40 to 80. This is because it isn't the type of content infants would or should be viewing. Additionally, it would be what these generations knew about. It would reflect what grandparents and maybe parents used to tell them. However, we argued that nowadays the younger generation would be more interested in watching a film noir to gain the understanding of crime and gangsters when they first came around. We thought this content would be acceptable because it's not like all the other film noir films. The target audience is also aimed at males. This is distinguished by the stereotypical nature of the content, using guns. However, we think it actually would appeal to females as well, due to the femme fatale being a female and the dutiful being a female, and it's quite heavily dominated by women. There was a lot of disagreement between the group deciding if it had a niche audience or a mainstream audience. Therefore, we decided on the mainstream audience, as we wanted to challenge what had already been made and put out on the market. Overall, our film is aimed at both female and male, ages 15 to 40 plus. We attracted our audience through the use of an innovative narrative. We also thought the different themes were quite interesting, and the elements of thriller attracted the main audience that we were going for. We did do a lot of audience research, mainly because we wasn't sure how we wanted the film to go, first of all. So when we were doing this feedback, we found out that our audience was interested in the idea of a female antagonist, which is considered one of the most generic concepts of film noir. I think we also attract our audience by creating a film opening heavily based on their feedback. This included their initial thoughts and opinions, which we kept getting throughout the process of the editing. As I previously mentioned, we did want to get the opinion of our audience. We used a range of different Web 2.0 tools. These web tools included things like SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, and other types of feedback questions. We did ask our target audience at 3 different stages about our film. At the beginning, when it first started editing, just literally putting the clips in, and nearer the end where we'd nearly finished the film, we really wanted different opinions, and I think that's what attracted them, because they realised each time they saw it that we were changing something that they suggested. I really didn't have a massive understanding of Final Cut Pro 10 or any of the software on the computers really. However, I decided that each time I used Final Cut Pro 10 that I'd use something different to really grasp the understanding of the software, because I feel like a lot of people thought that I didn't know what I was doing. This meant when we began creating more and more of our film, I had more and more of an understanding. I really think my skills have grown over this process, and I know a lot of people say that, but I really think they have. This can be seen when creating titles. We use something called Motion, which we've never used before. None of us had any prior experience of using it, which meant we really had to work together. So if one of us knew what we were doing, then they'd show the other person. This made sure that we had more advanced titling sequences, as this was a main point in the mark scheme. I can definitely say over a period of time I've become increasingly more confident when using the Macs in general. What I found really fun was when we were doing green screens. I had never known how to do this before, and it did take me a bit of a while, but when I found out how to do it, I felt so pleased with myself, and I didn't realise how easy it was. All you had to do was go to the settings and find the right effect, which you then put onto your clip, put a background in, and you've got your green screen.
I think our editing skills
and our group skills have developed since doing our preliminary task, as we've worked on the whole process. We work with three main editing techniques, including 180-degree rule, match and action, and shot reverse shot. The first shot was a match and action. It's when an action starts in one shot and ends in another. You can see this in our preliminary task, where one of our actors walks through the door, and the next shot is him through the door and sitting down. There is an imaginary line where the camera sits, which is perpendicular to the two characters. The final shot is a shot reverse shot. This is when you have the camera looking over one person's shoulder and then it swaps to the other person to show their expressions. This is seen in our preliminary task. All three of these techniques were used in our film to make it as realistic as possible.